Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be doing a Facebook Live class. Our Shaar Habitachon class will take place actually here at Laguardia Airport. Just arrived for the day. I'm here to be Menachem Ovel, someone, a family friend, or family member of mine. So, just arrived, never made it to my parents' home to give the class, so I'm just going to start here. Hi, Francesca, good morning. And excited to haven't ever done a Shaar Habitachon class at an airport, but you know what? One of the things that Tanya always teaches us is that we have to make a dir Habitachtonim, a dwelling place for Hashem here on this world. So I can't think of a better place for teaching Torah and teaching Chassidus than at an airport. And I just removed my mask for a few seconds so that we can study together. It's going to be maybe a short class because I'll probably have to get my mask back on, but I'm in a secluded area now and we're ready to go. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lauren, Francesca, Helga, Elise, Corinne. Good to see all of you. And we'll start off by giving tzedakah. Gedela tzedakah shemikareves esaka'ula. Everyone, please put a coin into each tzedakah box. Corinne, I'm on my way to. I'm in New York. I'm here to be Menachem Ovel, a family member who's sitting Shiva. So I'm here for the day. Okay, so we're going to say chapter Tehillim, chapter Chaf, and please put down anybody that you would like to have their names included. Yaakov Moshe ben Necha, Yehudis bas Sarah, Yitzchak Moshe ben Rachel Reza, Tzipora Hinda bas Rachel Miriam, Sarah bas Chana, Chana Devorah bas Golda Basya, Menucha bas Emmanuel, Sarah bas Rivka, Yisrael ben Esther Golda, Nachum Dina bas Esther Hadassah, Henya Tzipora bas Chaya Yochevet, Tuvi Moshe ben Perel, Liran Bracha bas Shendel Leah, Rivka bas Chefza, Leah bas Chapitza, Tzvi ben Chana, Chana bas Freda, and Nachum ben Alta. This list is getting too long. We need to have some more good news so I could take some of these names off. Okay, so how is everybody feeling today? Show me with an emoji how you feeling today. Give me a thumbs up if it's a good day, if you're relaxed, if you have menuchas nefesh, if you're feeling calm. Just give me a little bit of, okay, I see some good thumbs up going on. Okay, who's feeling upbeat and positive? Hanukkah was over. That's a little bit of a hard thing to get back to real life, but it's going to be a good month. Mitzvah Hashem, a lot of learning, a lot of Torah studying, a lot of acts of goodness. I see feeling good. Looking at some of the messages here. Someone says, okay. Okay, we have Shirley on, and here we have Brenda. Good morning. Good to see you. Nikki's here. Hi, Nikki. Good morning. Helene is here. Okay, Elise is good. Francis says she's feeling good. Francesca's okay. Okay, so let's say Tehillim together. And by now you should know by heart because we've been saying this Tehillim for a long, long time. Lamanatzech mizmar leDavid yancha Adonai biyom tzara yisagef Hashem Elohei Yaakov yishlach ezra chamikodesh u'mitzion yisadeka yiskar kol mechasecha v'lascha yidash nesela yitin lecha chalavecha v'chol atzascha yimalei Rana b'shuasecha uv'shem Eloheinu nidgol yimalei Adonai kol mashalasecha Ati adati ki Hoshea Adonai mishicho yanei meshmei kacha b'guras yesha yamino Eila v'arecha ve'ela v'asosim v'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir hema kar v'nafalu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisodad Adonai Hoshea HaMelech Yanenu b'yom karenu. And we are continuing chapter 3. Does anybody remember what we spoke about last week? What we were talking about? I found it very interesting. Rabbeinu Bachaya, the author of Shaar Habitachon, for those of you who have just joined us for the first time, Rabbeinu Bachaya answers a question that's been puzzling me. And I'd love to see, just on your comments, if this is puzzling you as well. Why is it that good people suffer? Just tell me the truth. Does that ever bother you, that the righteous people suffer and the wicked people prosper? Like, is that something that ever crosses your mind, seeing friends, seeing community people, people that are so kind, that are so good, that are so loving, and they struggle and they suffer, whether financially or with health, with children, with nachas. It's so painful to watch. And you see some people who didn't pick up a darn finger to help anyone, and they're making millions, and they're living in comfort, and they're traveling around the world on their private jets. And you wonder, what's going on? Does that ever bother you? I want to see some comments. I'll wait a few seconds. If that has bothered you, put it down here in the comments. Okay, I don't see any comments here. Oh, I see, yeah. Yes. Okay, here he goes. We have Joanne, Bella's on, Hannah's on. Gail, good morning. Corinne says, yes, this has bothered you sometimes. Anyone else, or is it just me and Corinne? Ava, good morning. Anyone else been bothered with this? Why is it that the wicked prosper and the rich and the righteous suffer? Has it ever concerned you or worried you? Seeing Hashem's world seemingly created with a God who's just, a God who's kind and has compassion, a God that's full of mercy, and you see so many righteous people seem to be struggling. So last week we said 5 reasons. Rabbeinu Bachya says 5 reasons why the righteous suffer, and I'm just going to review it. Tell me if you remember it. Number 1, because they might have done a previous sin. They might have done something in their life, and so Hashem is making sure that they clear off all their sins, so that when they get to Olam Haba, after 120, there should be no sins on their track. Number 2, they earn a bigger portion in the world to come. Number 3, to teach others how suffering should not hinder divine service. We see a lot of people that are going through cancer or struggling with infertility, and yet they have so much positivity, and they're so believing, and they're so trusting. That's here. They're here to teach us, okay? To display true righteousness, and also because they didn't affect their surroundings appropriately. Okay, so those are reasons why the wicked prosper. But now we turn the page, and he answers another question. So why do the wicked prosper? Okay, why? What do they do to deserve it? So to tell you that, I'm going to start off with a story. Remember last week I told the story of the Plotkin Rebbe? So the Plotkin Rebbe, if you remember, was a popular Polish rabbi who lived in Poland and was sent to Auschwitz. Last week I told you the incredible story of the menorah that he put together with potatoes and butter, and how he made the shechianu. It was a very emotional story. This week I'm going to share with you a different story. I told my husband last night, when Mashiach comes, I'm looking forward to meeting the Plotkin Rebbe, a man full of stories and zest for life and honesty and bitachon, like tremendous. So the story goes like this. The Plotkin Rebbe was in Auschwitz, and it was one evening that the Nazis, Yamach Shamam, came into the barracks, and just for fun, they ordered all the Jews to go into the center of the field, the center of the camp, and they had built a big, big ditch. And he said to all of the emaciated and exhausted and hungry Jewish inmates, he said to them, you can live. You just have to jump over the ditch. But if you don't make it, and he shows his rifle. The Plotkin Rebbe had become quite friendly with an atheist, and the two of them shared a bunk bed. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. And the atheist was a young, healthy man. He turns to Plotkin Rebbe and he says, Reb Isaac, you Rebbe Yisrael, he says, you're never going to make it over the pit. Don't even try. And don't give the Nazis the pleasure of trying. You know we're all going to fall in anyway. This is way too large. So the Plotkin Rebbe says to him, we have to trust in Hashem. Just trust in Hashem. You never know what trusting in Hashem could do for you now. he says, just hold on and say with me the Shema prayer. So the two of them stood by the edge of the pit, and they said the Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And with all their kavanah, and with all their intention, they took a deep breath and jumped. And guess what? They found themselves over the pit. The Blazher Rebbe looks at the atheist, and the atheist looks at the Blazher Rebbe. And they go, how did you make it over the pit? So the atheist says to the Blazher Rebbe, how did you make it over the pit? An old, frail man. Look at this pit. How did you make it over the pit? So the Blazher Rebbe says to him, I didn't go on my own merits. I trusted in my parents, in my grandparents, my great-grandparents, all the way going up to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But then he says to the atheist, but how did you make it over the pit? And he says to him, I held on to your coattails. I held on to you. That trust of tzaddikim, which we spoke about at the beginning of the class, to be able to have emunah, trust and faith, that a tzaddik connects us to Hashem. And this is exactly how the Blazher Rebbe was able to make it over the pit with his friend intact. Why am I telling this to you? Because although this man, this atheist, maybe never did a mitzvah, wasn't connected to Hashem, didn't believe in God, didn't have trust in God, but nevertheless, he held on to the righteous. And holding on to the righteous is one of the things that the Rebbe Chaya tells us. Why do the wicked prosper? And I'm not going to say that this atheist, God forbid, was wicked, but we're looking at sometimes people that we don't think seem to have any mitzvah to their credit. And he says here, the reasons the wicked prosper is for a previous good deed, a deposit for a righteous inheritor, as a cause for the greater punishment of death. Now, let me go back to number 2, as a deposit for a righteous inheritor. What does that mean? Anybody have any idea that sometimes someone who seemingly seems like someone who doesn't do much for Hashem, for humanity, and yet they live such comfortable lives, health and wealth and ease and menachas nefesh. Anybody ever think about that? Or do you know people like that? Because I'm going to tell you a very, very interesting story. Specifically now that I've arrived to New York and I'm in USA, I'm going to tell you a story about Trump. Okay? Trump's father, his name was Fred. Fred Trump was a big developer in the 1950s, very, very wealthy landowner. He actually lived in Brooklyn. And the story is told that there was a small synagogue in Brooklyn, actually Avenue Z. I know that place very well. And they needed money to pay for the synagogue. And the rabbi there was Rabbi Wagner. Remember, this is 1950s, he was a Holocaust survivor. And he needed money to pay for this building. And who was the landowner? This Lutheran real estate mogul by the name of Fred Trump. So he approaches Fred Trump, who he does not know at all, and he explains to him the predicament that the Jewish people need a place to worship. They need a synagogue. And right then and there, Fred Trump made out a check and paid for this little synagogue. And today, there was a big, beautiful gold medallion in the front of the synagogue bearing the name of Fred Trump and thanking him for his kindness and his charity to keep this synagogue going. And I believe that in the merit of this great charity, his son and his grandchildren have a lot of wealth today, because everyone that's prospering has some mitzvahs that they've done. Either them, or as Rabbeinu Bechaya says, it could be even an ancestor. even if an ancestor did something terrific, special, kindly, godly, their children and grandchildren will benefit. But then there was another point here, which I thought was very interesting. It's a deposit. And what does it mean, a deposit? So there's a very interesting story told about Yosef Moker Shabbos, and the story is actually told in the Gemara, in the Talmud, Gemara Shabbat. You can look up the story yourself. It's the story about a poor man by the name of Yosef, and Yosef loved Shabbat. And every week Yosef would gather up his coins and go to the market and buy the best of the best for Shabbat. And sometimes he would buy the best even on Monday and put it away for Shabbat. You know, some of us buy something nice and we'll go, oh, I'll put this away for Shabbat. Or you find some gorgeous flowers and you go, oh, I'm going to put this away for my Shabbat table. Or you find a beautiful fish and you say, I'm not going to serve it for dinner tonight. I'm going to wait for Shabbat. Has it ever happened to you? Anybody? Okay. So this man, Yosef Moker Shabbos, would do that on a regular basis. He would go in to the market and pick up some nice things. And if he saw something nicer the next day, he would put that away for Shabbos. And this is what would go on until Friday. Well, one day, Yosef is passing by the fish store. And he's not a man with a lot of money. The fisherman says, hey, Yosef, you gotta come here. I've got something for you. Now, what's the story behind the story? There was a wealthy man who had a lot of money, but unfortunately did not share it with others. And so, you know, Hashem gives people a certain amount of time to use their wealth for good. And otherwise, the money is taken. That's the way the story goes. And so, this wealthy man has all his fortune, and he goes to a fortune teller one day, and the fortune teller says to him, you should know, I see in the stars there's going to be a very, very poor Jew by the name of Yosef Moker Shabbos, and he's going to inherit all of your wealth. So this man goes, what? My wealth is going to be taken from me? I have to do something about it. And so he sells all of his masses, all of his wealth, all of his fortune, his houses, his horses, his real estate, and buys one massive stone, a gem worth millions. Then he goes to a beautiful hat store and he tells them to put it straight into the hat and sew it up very, very well, and he will wear this hat. And no one, not even Yosef Moker Shabbos, will be able to steal his fortune from him. But you know, when something's in the plans, that's the way it's going to be. And so, this rich man decides he's going to leave his country very far from Yosef so that Yosef will never get his hands on his fortune. He gets onto a boat, relaxing, and suddenly tremendous winds come. Huge gusts of winds like we had yesterday in Toronto, 80 miles an hour. And wouldn't you know, the hat flies off the head of this wealthy man and twirls itself in the wind until it lands in the water. And the man screams, my hat, my hat. Anyone who jumps in, I will repay them for the hat. And someone does indeed find the hat. But alas, the gem is gone. The gem sinks deeper and deeper into the water, and a fish sees something sparkling, swallows the fish. And now this is the fish that swims up to shore and was caught by a fisherman. The fisherman that's screaming out the name of Yosef, Yosef, come here. I have a magnificent fish. The most beautiful fish, for sure, a fish that you're going to love for Shabbat. And Yosef takes his last penny, but he loves Shabbat. And he will spend whatever he can on a mitzvah, because Yosef used to have a house full of guests. That's what he loved most. Hachnasas orchim. And Yosef takes this very heavy fish home and brings it back to the family, and he says to his children, look, the most beautiful fish for Shabbat. And the wife goes, how were we able to afford this fish? It's way beyond our means. He goes, when you put out money for tzedakah, or you give money for hachnasas orchim, Hashem will always pay us back. And so he tells his wife, please, if you don't mind, can you clean and cook the fish? I'll go get ready the house for Shabbat. And lo and behold, as she opens up the belly of the fish, there inside is this magnificent gem. And indeed, the gem of that very rich, stingy man was now given as a fortune to Yosef Mocher Shabbos. You can look up the story in the Gemara Shabbat, and you'll see the story for itself. This story has two very important lessons. Number one, Hashem has his ways of bringing people good fortune. And sometimes, like Rabbi Bachya says here in this book, sometimes Hashem gives it to a wealthy person so that he holds it on for the right time for the righteous to receive. I find this to be a very fascinating story, and it has many, many layers of messages. First of all, we have to continue doing mitzvot. We don't have to worry about if we got our rewards. We do mitzvahs because of the sake of doing mitzvahs for Hashem. But we're told that Hashem never stays a Baal Chov. He never, ever will owe anyone anything. Any mitzvah you do, any kindness you do, any gesture you do, any of these mitzvot, taking care of the sick, paying the dowry for a bride, helping a poor person, taking care of the orphans, all of these mitzvot, you do them, and Hashem will never stay a Baal Chov. And I want to wish you all a wonderful day. I'm going to go grab my Uber and go visit my family member who's sitting Shiva. And looking forward to seeing you again next week. Best regards from LaGuardia. Take care.